Thank you, Lisa. This is Peg Brady from NOAA Fisheries, and welcome to the continuation of our 2024 Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management. And just a clarification, it's not a stock assessment seminar series. Sorry about that. Today, we're continuing the series, which we began in 2017, and the purpose has been to increase awareness regarding ecosystem-based management and highlight the progress that not only NOAA is undertaking, but what our partners are also doing to enhance and implement EBM strategies nationally and globally. NOAA Library continues to be our great, valuable host for this series. The seminars are held on the second Wednesday of each month at the same time, 3 to 4 Eastern Time. Each presentation, as Lisa pointed out, is publicly available and accessible and recorded. Past recordings I will put the link in to our past recordings in our YouTube channel. And there's an opportunity this afternoon to ask questions from our speaker, and Lisa pointed out how to do that. I want to really extend my appreciation to the many speakers we've had, our colleagues and attendees who join the series each month and provide valuable feedback and offer recommended speakers. Our next speaker will be on June 12th, same time. Our speaker will be Wendy Morrison from our Sustainable Fisheries Office here at NOAA Fisheries, who will be speaking about her research on ecosystem level reference points. So I would like to turn this over now to our speaker today. Thankfully, we have Yvonne deReynier, our Senior Research Management Specialist in our NOAA Fisheries West Coast Regional Office, who's been focusing on policy development with respect to ecosystem-based management and the changing climate, planning for changing climate. So Yvonne, I'm going to turn this over to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Peg and Lisa. I am going to share my screen to get started. And good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Could I just get a confirmation, Peg, whether you can see my presentation on screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So thank you again for having me to speak today. I'm Yvonne deReynier from NOAA Fisheries West Coast region. And for the project I'm discussing today, I'm on detail with the Office of the Assistant Administrator and Jason Link, our Senior Scientist for Ecosystem-Based Management. My close partners in this process are Wendy Morrison in our Headquarters Sustainable Fisheries Office, who led the update of the EBFM policy late last year, and Chris Harvey, who provided you with a retrospective look at our accomplishments under the 2016 EBFM Road Map. And he gave a NOAA Library talk in February that provides a bunch of background on the work we've been doing in ecosystem-based fisheries management. So you might want to look back at that for more information. Both the Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management Policy and Roadmap are part of our policy directive system. Policy directives are not laws, and they don't bind the public as laws do, but they do help the agency think about and articulate the details of how we're going to implement our laws for a changing future. We review and update them on a regular basis, and today I'll be explaining some of our thoughts around the Roadmap update. First, I'd like to share with you the names of our amazing team of colleagues who joined us to imagine the future of the roadmap. There are a lot of acronyms there, so for members of the public, please know that we have scientists and management experts from around the country and from our headquarters. It's been an honor to work with such a smart and interesting group of people, and I hope that everyone who is listening in knows at least one of those names on the list. I'd like to start by asking all of you to think about the Earth as it commonly is from a human perspective. This aggregate image from NASA of the world at night illustrates the human world that's on our screens and under our electric lamps. Then we move to a world, the Earth during the day. Another NASA image roughly representing the month of May, with the land variously in green, brown, and white, where you might expect it to be so at this time of year. You can see the continental shelf off of our coasts, where we know that upwelling processes are happening right now. setting primary productivity into motion for our ocean ecosystems. And then here in the United States, with its large marine ecosystems, roughly divided by oceanographic processes and geological formations, which then influence the living ecosystems. The exclusive economic zones are entirely a human idea, grown out of the mid-20th century, an idea that coastal nations should have exclusive access to the economic benefits from resources off our coasts out to 200 nautical miles. Here in the United States, we've used the Magnuson-Stevens Act to organize our exclusive economic zones into 8 fishery management councils, some with responsibilities for multiple ecosystems, some with responsibilities for parts of ecosystems. These councils, with representatives from different states, treaty tribes, and the public, guide fisheries management in the U.S. exclusive economic zone. Since 1976, the Fishery Conservation and Management Act has required us to set fishery conservation and management measures that rebuild, restore, and maintain fishery resources while assuring a supply of seafood and ocean products on a continuing basis. But it continually looks towards the future to both avoid adverse effects on the environment and to ensure that future generations of Americans have options themselves for continuing to benefit from our sustainable resources. We're required to ensure food production and recreational opportunities while protecting our marine ecosystems. And we're bound and guided by the Marine Mammal Protection Act as well. This act, of course, is very focused on the conservation and protection of marine mammal stocks, but also recognizes that the ultimate aim of protecting those stocks is to restore their roles in the ecosystems. With endangered species, particularly those most critically endangered, we often think of triage for those species, perhaps seeing each individual animal or organism for its potential roles in recovering populations. But that act also recognizes that the ecosystems themselves must be conserved if species populations are to be restored. Ultimately, our laws make all of us trustees for the environment, for future generations, asking for sustainable use now and into the future. Ecosystem-based management can gather all of these ideas together, collect the responsibilities entrusted to us by our laws, collect the wisdom of people in the communities we serve, and the knowledge explored by and shared with us by our scientists. And in the case of NOAA Fisheries, we've been using our Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management Policy and Road Map, first debuted in 2016, to bring those responsibilities and ideas together. What we learned during this initial period was that for 2024 and beyond, we needed more smooth connections between our scientific knowledge and our management responsibilities, and that making those connections would require us to have the roadmap more explicitly address 4 additional areas. First, climate. We need both more information about and connection to science on the physical environment, and more preparations for climate-ready fisheries, climate-ready management for protected resources, and climate planning in habitat conservation and restoration. Second, communities. We need better communication and collaboration with the communities that we serve, and we need better integration of human dimension science into our ecosystem-based management work. Third, habitat. NOAA's responsibilities for habitat conservation and restoration have expanded dramatically under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. We need to ensure that our work on habitat benefits the species and the fisheries that we conserve and manage. Fourth, protected resources. Ocean species are on the move in response to climate anomalies, climate variability, and the emerging effects of climate change. If we are going to continue to minimize bycatch of our protected resources and to understand the changing habitat and prey resources of our protected resources, we need to know more about their changing migratory patterns and routes. We've updated and refined the Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management Policy in late 2023, completing it in early 2024. The circle diagram on the right illustrates the policy's 6 guidelines, each of which has 3 goals to help us sort our work. In the roadmap itself, we identify action items for each guideline, and I'll walk you through those ideas and discuss draft summaries of the action items from our 6 guidelines. Guideline 1, Implement Ecosystem Level Planning, is about supporting our management partners in exploring their vision and goals for the future of our marine ecosystems. For example, the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council has provided for itself an ecosystem approach to fisheries management. And my own Pacific Fishery Management Council provided itself with a vision statement for the California current ecosystem, which it manages. Under Guideline 1 for 2024 and beyond, NOAA Fisheries plans to improve internal and external coordination and communication while continuing to support our management partners in their explorations of ecosystem-based ideas and goals. Guideline 2, Advance Our Understanding of Ecosystem Processes, is about the science we plan for and conduct in a changing world. It includes our vital data collection work, our ongoing ecosystem status reporting, and our exciting new work to understand our ocean futures. Under Guideline 2, we plan to dig into and better use the data we have, to improve our planning for future data collection and sharing, continue and expand our work on ecosystem status reports, develop and use new scientific analyses, and investigate gaps in our understanding. Guideline 3, Prioritize vulnerabilities and risks to ecosystems and their components, is about looking squarely at these vulnerabilities, understanding where we need to act soonest, and about preparing for future challenges. Our climate vulnerability assessments and risk assessments will continue, and we will look for increasing coverage in all U.S. regions for habitat, communities, fish stocks, and protected resources. We'll look to understand where species and habitats are most vulnerable to potentially change and other human and natural changes. And we'll try to prepare our fisheries, our coastal communities for those changes. Under Guideline 3, NOAA Fisheries plans to research, assess, and prepare our communities for ecosystem vulnerability and change. Guideline 4, Explore and address trade-offs within an ecosystem, brings scientists and managers together to test potential management priorities and responses. We're going to continue our scenario planning work and boost our understanding of fishing fleet behavior. We want to improve our understanding of trophic interactions and explore multi-species harvest limits. And we want to continue and expand on our management strategy evaluation efforts. Under Guideline 4, we will expand the science to management conversation with action items that call for scientific testing of new management ideas and for refinement of those ideas in cooperation with managers and communities. Guideline 5, Implement ecosystem considerations into management, supports both innovative and traditional ideas for bringing scientific information into our management processes to better consider ecosystems in those processes. We want to understand the potential for ecosystem level reference points. We want to see where ecosystem and climate information might be used in traditional vehicles like as stock assessments. And we need to improve our habitat and species distribution mapping and explore how to better use those ideas and information in management. Our draft action items for Guideline 5 support that science to management interface and recognize that we have work to do on the science side to make our products more useful to managers, and on the management side to better understand the information being shared. Finally, Guideline 6, support ecosystem resilience through tracking management actions, is perhaps the most bureaucratic of our guidelines. We want to improve our implementation of our laws under a future of climate variability and change. We want to better understand what that change means for human communities that rely on living marine resources, both for bright futures and in the case of fisheries disasters. And we need to remind ourselves to report back to the public on addressing these action items. Guideline 6 focuses on our mandates, on resilience under future pressures, and on communication. So, under the Ecosystem-Based Fisheries Management Road Map, we are both exploring new ideas and doing what NOAA has always done, what the Bureau of Fisheries and the Coast and Geodetic Survey did before us. We are looking out over the horizon, exploring the ocean and living marine resources, and sharing ideas with each other and with the public. And so I want to close out this presentation by going back to that natural world and finish with an appreciation for some of the amazing marine ecosystems under U.S. stewardship. Moving to that part of the map that usually seems to be on the edges, but is very much front and center for many people in the world, the Pacific. In the tropical Pacific, we have some amazing coral ecosystems and other tropical systems off the Northern Marianas Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and other territories. We have highly biodiverse waters off of Hawaii and the many fishing communities of Hawaii and the rest of the Pacific, which are essentially every community in the U.S. and the Pacific. Moving around to tropical Atlantic waters in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, in the Gulf of Mexico, off the U.S. South Atlantic, and the Southeast Shelf, and the Northeast Atlantic Shelf ecosystem, New England. And then on the bottom there, you'll see Atlantic cod, the species that brought many of our ancestors here. Moving from this temperate zone up around to the north and to the west, to the Bering Sea and the Arctic Ocean, to the obviously quite abundant waters of the Aleutian Islands, and then south to the temperate California current ecosystem, my home ecosystem, highly biodiverse, with our relatively small continental shelf, but our amazing fisheries, habitats, and people. Thank you so much for your time. I would be happy to answer any questions, and I think we have a Q&A session now, and you can certainly email me afterwards. Thank you.
Yvonne, this is Peg. I think I'll offer up a question to you to get started here. Given the fact that this is sort of NOAA Fisheries' second or revised roadmap and policy, I'm wondering if you could offer any suggestions that folks had debated during the development and revisions of the policy and the roadmap. Anything we learned from the first chapter of EBFM?
Thanks, Peg. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we were interested in improving the science to management transition. So, we often use the term management on ramps. What are the ways of getting more science into our management processes? And so, I think we looked a lot at how we are, what kind of information we're providing and how we're communicating that information with managers and the public. So I think that was a major focus, as were those four focus areas that I mentioned at the beginning: habitat, protected resources, communities, and climate.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, we have started getting some questions. So this first anonymous question also thanks you and asks, how does the NMFS EBFM Road Map consider the NMFS climate science strategy given the overlap?
Well, so climate is, of course, part of the ecosystem, and our climate science strategy is also a few years old. It emerged at around the same time as the EBFM Road Map. And so, what we're trying to do is sort of bring everything together under an umbrella of EBFM as we're considering our climate science going forward. We wanted to serve our missions of supporting sustainable fisheries, of conserving and protecting endangered and threatened resources and marine mammals. And so we're trying to bring all of this together to ensure that our different mandates are supported.
Thank you. Here's our next question from Jason, who asks, what are the top 2 or 3 things you've learned from the last EBFM roadmap compared to now?
Let's see. Top 2 or 3 things. So one thing that we did the last time that we made a big effort to correct this time, but it won't show up. I hope it won't show up as a big effort. I'll explain this. Last time we kept most of the sort of human dimensions science, anthropology, economics, the social sciences in just one of the 6 guidelines, and we wanted to integrate it more seamlessly throughout the roadmap this time. And so when I say that I hope you won't notice it, what I mean is that the human dimension sciences and information about our communities and planning for our information needs is more fully integrated throughout the document. It's under all of the guidelines, and I hope that anyone reading it will be no more surprised to see human dimension science in guideline 2 or 3 than they would to see it under guidelines 5 or 6, or to see biological science emphasized elsewhere. I would say one of the things, so that's one thing. And then another thing was we, during the 2015-16 period, we created a lot of documents and a lot of different sets of priorities. And so this gets to the last question about the climate science strategy. We're trying to consolidate a bit and make sure that we have an understandable and brief set of guidelines, goals, and action items. We have fewer action items than we did last time, and they're, I hope, a little bit more clear than they were last time. So those are some of the things that we worked on, and I guess I would also say, the push to include habitat in the EBFM roadmap more explicitly, that came internally through a lot of work on the part of our habitat conservation groups and offices. And so there was a lot of internal effort to expand the ideas in and meaning behind the EBFM roadmap.
Thank you. This next question from Anonymous asks, can you speak to whether there are considerations for local knowledge or indigenous knowledge, and what are the initiatives for stakeholder/community engagement?
Okay, thank you for that question. So yes, there's definitely considerations for local knowledge and indigenous knowledge. And as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, treaty Indian tribes are part of they're our management partners and in many of our fisheries management processes. And we also have any indigenous communities around the country that may or may not be part of a treaty Indian tribe, but are certainly have a heavy influence on how we're thinking about our management processes. And then also, of course, our fishing communities, regardless of who is part of them, have a heavy influence on science and management. So in addition to the greater emphasis on integrating social science into the EBFM roadmap, we also have some provisions in the roadmap for, I can't remember the exact words, and I don't think you'd want me to read them aloud, but we have some provisions for thinking about first foods and traditional cuisine and uses of natural resources. And so how do we ensure that we are respecting those traditional uses and ensuring that they're sustainable into the future?
Great, thank you. We did get a question, which I can't put on the screen, from Joe. It came through the chat, and it asks, what are the implications for using a single species approach for setting OYs, etc.?
Well, let's see. I did see that, and Joe, I wasn't quite sure exactly what you meant by that. There's probably a lot of implications for using a single species approach. We do have obligations under our various laws to consider our species on their own. Not all of our species are we able to consider on their own. We don't have the data for that. I would say, one of the benefits of thinking about single species is that for those we're able to track, we're better able to ensure that those populations are monitored and continue to thrive into the future. Some of the challenges of a single species approach might be that we hope to, address with the ecosystem approach is that we may not be thinking as carefully about the roles of those species within their ecosystems. We may not understand as much about how they're affected by the natural environment, by the physical environment around them, and we may not understand, for example, their role in the food web, who eats them and who gets eaten by them, and what the ecosystem needs out of those stocks. So I think there's a bunch of implications for both the single species approach and the ecosystem approach, and they should be used together.
Thank you. I'll give it another second, but that appears to be our last question. Audience, if you have any more questions, please put them in the Q&A chat box on your right. All right. Well then, thank you so much, Yvonne, for your presentation today.
Yes, thank you, Yvonne, and thank you, Lisa. Just a reminder to join us on June 12th to listen to Wendy Morrison from our Office of Sustainable Fisheries. And she'll be focusing in on ecosystem level reference points in her presentation. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you for all your continued support and recommendations.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Yvonne. Appreciate it.
Hope to see everybody next month. Take care.